who is my ideal buyer. And I'm gonna build the house around that avatar. I'm gonna turn this over to my brother Bob in a second. He's gonna talk about this project. And Bob's great because he'll teach you and he'll share with you how he put the deal together, how he structured it, maybe some of the reasons why he built it the way he did. Because this is a spec home, right? So what does a spec mean? There's no buyer, right? So he bought a piece of land, built this house, put it up for sale, find a buyer after you're done building it. That's spec building. It's similar to a fix and flip, other than buy it, fix it, sell it. It's buy the land, build it, sell it. Okay, so there is no buyer right now. It's just listed $6.5 million for this house, 40 acres. So this lot is on 40 acres, HOA with 8 or 9 homes, right?
Yep.
And so the biggest reason why Pace and I wanted to bring you out to this and make sure you guys all thank Bob for taking time to show this to you is to just kind of help you see and think bigger, right? Sometimes we get stuck in our lane and we think about deals. Most of us think about deals from a really small perspective, right? And this is a big deal because this is, we can't, so let me clarify one thing. Because this is active for sale, one thing Bob's not gonna do is talk numbers, right? Because you don't want that getting out in the public, and then a buyer, you never want a buyer to know what your numbers are, right? That doesn't help you sell a house. So he'll probably be a little protective of that. But outside of that, he'll share quite a bit about this house. But this is a big deal, right? You're taking on a lot of debt to do a deal like this with no buyer until you're done. So you put a lot of money in, a lot of cost in, a lot of time in, hoping for a big sale at the end. But this is how you can stay in residential and really scale. Like, there really is no limit. And I share with you guys a little bit of my journey from Detroit into luxury. And a lot of that has been following in Bob's footsteps. So he's been investing a little bit longer than me, and we've done business together in real estate for 20 years now. But one reason why I like to associate with Bob, just like Pace and others, is because he's constantly pushing himself to grow and develop into a better version of himself, into bigger deals, or whatever that looks like. More deals, bigger deals, higher margins. There's a lot of different ways to develop, but what Bob's done is he's pushed into luxury, residential luxury. Okay, so, this is a $6.5 million home. Like, that's a big project. So I hope more than anything, you guys can take away from this experience, like, here's someone doing really big things. And how can I, whatever level I'm at, how can I level up? Remember, I talked about that next step. How can I increase my risk tolerance? How can I do a little bit bigger than where I'm at today and be on a trajectory that's constantly developing and growing into something better than today? Whatever that looks like. It's gonna look different for everybody. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay, so again, guys, I'm gonna give the mic and the megaphone to Bob. He's gonna share about this project. Maybe we'll do some Q&A after. Are we gonna be able to walk through all together, or should we do that in groups? Or
we can, maybe we'll kind of figure through, maybe kind of 30 or 40 at a time, or something like that.
So maybe overview the project, and then we'll do like maybe some groups.
Do you want 2? If we're doing question and answers, do you want 2 microphones?
I'll stay close to you.
Okay.
And we'll pick it up.
Okay.
Will that work? Yeah.
Will you pick it up if I just use this? Do you need to mic me up or no?
We'll pick it up fine.
Okay.
So I'll keep this on? Okay. I'll just stay close.
Okay, sound good? Okay, so first of all, we're really grateful for everyone being really respectful. Thank you for that. This is kind of a first for some of my contractors and for different people. It's like I tell people 300 people are coming out, so sometimes out here you'll maybe see 1 or 2 people a day, and that's about it. And that's kind of how Montana people like it. So really appreciative, especially when you're leaving. If you can just kind of, if any of you that are driving, if you can just kind of go out here nice and slow. This is the HOA president right here. So he's kind of always in a really nice way said, thank you for driving 10, 20 miles an hour. Don't be in a hurry. We're in Montana, right? So you picked a great day, Jerry, to come out here and do this. And so I just want to talk a little bit. I'll get into my background in a second, but why I did this house in this location and what I did. So I know everybody's looking, and I'm assuming that most of you are going to be doing some type of residential. Jerry and I came out here and we vacationed here during the middle of COVID. It was like all of us, we were just trying to figure out COVID. And so we came out to Montana. We stayed actually on the lake that Jerry lives on now. and that sounds like everyone was at last night. And so while we were there, I went out and bought some property, and Jerry bought that house. And while I moved out here 2 years ago full time, I started looking at this market. And it's really important for all of you to, whatever niche of real estate that you're going to be in, is I call it being a market expert. And it doesn't take that much time. It just takes being focused. And so it's really, I took the time and studied this market. And what I believed and felt was there are no properties that are on this amount of land and that will have a house like this. There's definitely homes in this area. If anyone's jumped on Zillow, up on Whitefish Mountain right over here, houses sell for over 10 million. It's just a little bit of a different dynamic up there. So I wanted to be, in a way, a deal. And I felt like at around 6 million, I was going to be a deal for an 8,000 square foot home on 40 acres. And you just couldn't find that.
Because your competition is $10 million homes on
Correct.
half an acre or whatever.
Correct. And as I looked at that, I felt like there was enough demand for people that wanted, let's call it elbow room. So because of the TV series Yellowstone, there's been 3 million unique visitors to Montana. Yellowstone has had a huge impact, especially in this Kalispell Whitefish area, for the growth. And so because of that, people are coming here quite a bit. At one point in the middle of COVID, I bought the lot in the very front, and then I turned around and resold it. And at the time, the guy ended up buying that lot and another lot. So he owns 80 acres there, and he's planning on building a maybe $5 to $10 million home. I actually met him and spoke with him, and I'm like, that's my buyer. He lives in Las Vegas, and I anticipate the buyer being someone either from Texas, California, second home, not even their primary home.
Is this a second home buyer?
I think this will be a second home buyer. I think it's someone that watched Yellowstone and wants to live on 40 acres. You know, neighbor next door has a couple horses, so I think you could come out with your fencing and that you could just kind of feel like you're going to be a rancher. I call it play rancher. You're not a rancher. Hobby rancher. Farm. It's kind of unlimited what you can do on these properties. It's pretty cool what they did next behind us. If everyone turns around and see, they have like that detached guest house, RV kind of home over there. But a lot of times we call those barn dominiums. So there's plenty of room to do. Barn dominiums are a really popular thing out here.
Did anybody go inside my garage at the house last night? Yeah. Okay, we did that. We converted it into a barn. We call it the barn, but it's like a barn dominium. That's very popular out here. Yeah.
So because of that and me studying the market, I felt like there would be an opportunity here. And so we started in November, and I actually poured concrete a week before Thanksgiving. It was 12 degrees. You know, let me just tell all of you, if you take anything away from this, don't pour concrete when it's 12 degrees. I've been paying for that ever since, right? So
you flew then.
Oh yeah. If we started
guys, think
at Thanksgiving.
8,000 square feet in 7 months, 8 months?
Yeah.
That's incredible, guys.
Yeah, give it. And so my framers are from Tucson. Don't ever bring framers from Tucson into Montana. Another set of framers later, after about a week, I showed them photos. I'm like, it's going to be cold. Oh, yeah. And then, no, that didn't work out so well. So there's been a lot of trials and perseverance on this home. But again, as we started to list the home, as we started to get some interest, the biggest thing that I kept coming back to is I feel like there's just no competition. And so whenever you kind of become an expert in your market, if you understand that part of the market, then you can kind of create a product. And it just kind of comes back to economics 101 of supply and demand.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I know Jerry's going to teach all sorts of different aspects of that, but when you really get down to buying and selling homes and flipping homes, and it just comes down to if there's not a lot of homes for sale and you've got a nice product, then people are going to buy your house.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that, Bob, is I don't know if you guys caught this yesterday. Vina said it. I've heard Pace talk about it a lot, your avatar, right? So understanding who your customer is, your buyer is. Vina talked, I don't know if Vina's here today, but she talked about when it's raising money, really understanding your avatar. Who are you going to go to? Doctors, or what kind of person are you trying to target to raise capital for? Well, Bob does the same thing on these luxury homes. A lot of effort. He puts a lot of effort into who is my ideal buyer. And I'm going to build the house around that avatar. Right? I'm going to really try to design and create an experience for that type of buyer. So it's not just, hey, I'm going to pop up 8,000 feet. I kind of like this type of cabinet. He's not doing that. Bob's not the buyer. Who's the buyer? Whoever the buyer is. So it could be nothing Bob likes that he would put in his own home, right? Because that's not what matters. What matters is what? Who is my buyer? Do I understand that buyer, what their needs are, what their wants are, and can I create a product that they're going to want and be willing to pay for?
Well, and most likely my buyer's going to be probably an entrepreneur who has some flexibility. They're probably going to be in their late 40s, mid 40s, early 50s. There's a 2-story. Older buyers are not going to want 8,000 square feet. That's going to be a little intimidating to them. But they're probably going to want to do family reunions, and they're going to want to entertain. They're
open floor plan.
And especially the open floor plan. And that's something that I've learned in doing the homes in Arizona is just really, it's a little unique to Montana, but the feedback's been phenomenal. Most people don't really do the open floor, split floor plan concept of primary, right? We don't call it master anymore, right? Call it primary. So the primary bedroom on one end, the other bedrooms on the other end. And that concept in the open floor plan is just something that really resonates, that has not really quite made its way to Montana as much. The other thing is no one does spec homes up here. I don't quite know why. I don't really, it's just something that's kind of unique. This market's really changed and exploded. And a lot of these markets have Jackson Hole, any of these kind of rocky mountain places, they've just really changed a lot. So because of that, it's just kind of more of, and I've tried to kind of keep the outside mountain feeling, but the inside a little bit more bright and open. And we can walk through it, but the spec homes, you almost want to be as a canvas, and you want the home to, you don't want to go too far any one way, and you want to try to appeal to as many buyers as you can. So that's kind of the general art of the deal.
What about views? You've always been very driven by views with your products.
And this is, as you kind of look around, this is more of what I would call a 360 view.
Yeah.
Kind of walking around and you're kind of seeing general mountains all over the place. And so I think views are always a big deal. And people can appreciate when you try to think about views. And that goes back to me in Southern Utah 10, 15 years ago. And almost in Arizona, in Paradise Valley, where I also build homes down there, you get punished if you're not getting a big view of Camelback Mountain. Or I should say you get rewarded. Yeah. If you can do a dead-on view of Camelback, the buyers are going to reward you a lot. So we really try to focus on views. That's pretty important. This house kind of became what I call a COVID house. So there's a lot to it. There's a gym, there's a theater room, there's 2 game rooms, there's 7 bedrooms. They're all en suites. So we just kind of crammed a lot of house, a big primary closet, 2 offices. So, hopefully COVID doesn't happen again. But for a lot of buyers, they felt the sting of that. And so when someone has $5-6 million, they're going, hey, I just want a place where I can stay, hang out, bring my family. That's a little bit of a response to the market stimulus of kind of what happened there. Going into why I do bigger deals, I actually had a business coach 10 years ago, and his name was Frank McKinney. And I remember at the time.
Who knows Frank McKinney or read any of his books?
Know him at all? I was paying him $1,000 an hour at the time, and I just, every minute was very focused. And we kind of came up with a plan where I moved from Southern Utah to Arizona with the intention of trying to do higher end homes. So we moved into the $3 to $4 million market. My wife and family were very supportive. And then from there, we kind of started getting into the luxury homes. Now the homes are in the $15, $20 million range in Paradise Valley. And that market's basically doubled from about 3 years ago. So it's just kind of learning how to adjust with that. But the luxury home market can be fantastic. It's actually just as much work or less work than the little homes sometimes. Not as far as the capital, but just the process, it's the same. And so as you can learn how to grow and expand your mind, if you can learn to think a little bigger, and sometimes each of us goes through that a little differently of how we do that, but hopefully this will give you a little glimpse of how to think a little bigger. And me and Jerry are always trying to do that and always trying to find other people that do. And so I hope if anything you're here, if you just kind of think a little bigger, and I can tell you that 40 acres helps you think a little bigger for sure. And so this,
So does 8,000 square feet.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Bob, explain why you listed already. What's your strategy behind that?
I hate listing before I'm done. I really don't like to do that, but the season is so short here in Montana. You come back here in about 6 to 8 weeks, the weather's going to start changing aggressively. So
everybody leaves.
And everybody leaves. So I really had goals to finish by July 1st. I missed my window. That was probably a little too aggressive. So basically, my agent and I decided, let's just get the house. We're kind of close enough, and then we'll just list it because we just want to catch our ideal buyer is going to be here visiting, probably from a hotter state, and they're going to be out here hanging out. And so, if they're coming from Tucson, right, they're going to be like, they want us, usually they'll come up here and stay in Whitefish for a month or two, and we're trying to just catch that buyer. That's the only reason why.
Yeah.
So,
because what Bob doesn't want to do is he doesn't want to turn into a custom builder where they're changing their mind 1,000 times.
And I've done that, and I've built homes for people, and there's really two types of builders. Builders that like to work for people and builders that don't like to work for people. I mean, you can get into the risk and the reward and all that, and some people are great at running a business, but overall, I just don't like having a boss, and you need to be accountable when you build homes for people. Real quick, one thing that just in here to kind of show is, you'll see I have a very small foyer. So I don't put a lot of square footage in my homes in the foyer. Typically in Montana, they have these monster, huge covered patios. You feel like you're walking into a hotel in your front. To me, that's wasted money, wasted capital. You'll see I don't have a formal dining room. I have a breakfast nook right here. But so I try to be really, as I've gotten buyer feedback, I try really hard to not waste any space. As you go around the corner, you'll see the game room. There's no hallway. So the bedrooms are right off the hallway. Again, that's to just try to be more efficient. I've done this floor plan about eight, 9 times. Not this exact one, but different versions of this. And it's always done exceedingly well. So I just kind of go with what I know is going to work. We try to keep it very open. You basically don't have any hallways in this home. Hallways are a wasted square footage. So when I'm designing the floor plan, I just try really hard to minimize hallways. We try to keep, the ceilings aren't super tall, but they're tall enough to give people that kind of bigger open feel. The wood cabinets are kind of in right now. I don't have a designer. My wife and I just kind of pick everything. Well, frankly, we kind of hack Zillow. Yeah. So I will go into other markets and I will see other homes that sell for $15 million, $10 million and go, oh, that looks hot. Oh, that looks good. And I just kind of copy something that I might have seen in LA or Denver or wherever.
I remember a spec we did where in Paradise Valley, $3 or $4 million home, and you took a spec in LA for $20 million, and then we told the lighting lady, I want these
same lights,
but instead of $5,000 chandelier, I want a $500 version of that same chandelier. And it looked the same, but it was.
Yep, I'm importing. 80% of my subcontractors are coming from Arizona. The market's not equipped to handle all the demand here for construction. So most of the subcontractors here are really pushed back. In fact, I went to go call a landscaper and they just laughed at me and said, we're 3 years out. So now I've become a landscaper and I don't want to be a landscaper. And I'm chasing sprinkler guys and my guy out there is grading. And so it's just kind of one of those things where it's hard to get landscapers to come up from Arizona. Some subs, they don't want to come up. But most of my subcontractors, because I'm also building down there, they've been very accommodating. My cabinet guy, they came in and they did all this in 2 days. They just loaded everything up. We did it on a semi truck, brought it up. And so we've just my finished guys were from Arizona that did the ceilings. And so they just my drywallers are from Arizona. So if I can find people here, I will. But most of them, they're so overwhelmed. They don't have the labor here. This market will hit equilibrium, but it's probably going to take a while.
Does it cost you more to bring people from Arizona?
There is a cost, but ironically, I'm probably about 40% cheaper to pay for their travel time, pay for their housing, pay for their transport, and I usually pay them about 10% more.
That's awesome.
So all of that added in is still almost about half of what it would be for guys up here. Because listen, these guys here, they're going to get what they're going to get, right? They know it. Hey, more power to them. But a lot of subs, like a painter, will go, I'm $15 a foot. Well, my painter in Arizona is $5. So I'll be like, how about I give you $8 a foot for your hassle to come up? And they do, and he's happy. And of course, anyone that comes up from Arizona here in the summer, they want a home. They're like, hey, let me know when you find a home. I'm like, that costs $1 million for that crappy little house over there, dude. So it's like, hey, man, have you gone on Zillow? But, we have some housing. I have some other property that they can stay in. So that's worked out pretty well. But it's that creativity.
If you listen to Bob and how he's building and doing these things, he's got this attitude of like, it's just how can I do it? Not can I, but how can I, right? You guys see that? Bringing subs from Arizona, figuring this stuff out, finding something unique like the Barnwood. He's taken a market, found the opportunity, and then he's not let no stop him from doing something that a lot of people aren't willing to do. Bob mentioned out there, I don't know if you caught it, no one's really spec building in Montana. Why do you think that is? Because they can't figure it out. Yeah, so what's Bob done? Figured it out, right? Like this business is about figuring it out. How do I got to figure this out? A lot of you guys are learning creative finance. Well, if there's one thing you can take away, it's how do you be creative? Meaning, how do you figure stuff out? It doesn't have to be a seller finance deal, but can you creatively solve problems? And that's what will separate you from everybody else who just sees the hard part of it.
Yeah, and it's being persistent. I went through 4 framers here. 4. And that was tough. When I poured the concrete floors, I had to then re-pour the concrete floors because it was too cold and the concrete didn't handle it right. So I hate the idea of having to do something twice. But, sourcing the Barnwood, I had to go to 4 different suppliers. But at the same time, if you just keep steady, and usually I'll say in construction, if you can just do one thing. So sometimes you'll get a little overwhelmed. And I used to go to seminars like this 20 years ago. And I remember one guy, he just said, if you just make one offer a day, and it's funny because what happens is we get caught up in the analytical side of, well, what about if we're looking at a deal and then it doesn't quite look out, or maybe it does, maybe we're talking about it. Just make an offer. And then look at another deal and make another offer. And you're going to get rejected. You're going to get turned down. This is a hot market. You're not just going to go find that perfect creative deal it's not just going to come to you sitting there. But at the same time, how you tend to do that is there's a big opportunity of just pushing and just kind of having that attitude of, so in construction, I'm like, well, I can do one thing. I can go pick up some tile. All right, I got tile. All right, cool. Now, and so what happens is if you stack that momentum, and then pretty soon that's how you kind of get stuff in 8 or 9 months instead of most homes take about 2 years out here to build.
Okay.
So
awesome, guys.